Hey everyone! Well, a couple episodes ago, you might remember that I was out hunting around for Hot Wheels cars because of all the things that I collect. Hot Wheels toys are actually one of them. That and old, I don't know, I collect a few things, but Hot Wheel cars lately, I've been trying to track down a whole set. One of you out there said, hey, why don't you fix one up and show us if you can do a restoration on one? So I'm not going to fix up one today. I'm going to do two, because why not? One's not as good as two, is it? Unless it's life sentences in prison. We're going to do two, and two is better than one today in this situation. Let me show you the cars. Here are the toys in question. The first one is a heavy Chevy. It's based off of a late 60s Camaro with no hood. It's not that it's missing a hood. They designed this little toy that way, but the tires are worn out. Somebody's got paint on them. There's really not much of the original paint left, and it's just an overall kind of rough condition. So that's contender number one. And sitting next to it, was in the very same shade of green, is this. Oddly, the back end is in not too bad a shape, but the front is completely worn away. It's a Ferrari 312P. I've selected these two because they were two of the worst ones I had at the store, and I think that they're examples that I probably could piece back together and make somewhat more unique and different. So these are the cars that we're going to tear into, and I'm going to show you the tools and what I have to do. So I'm going to go out and get my toolkit. Now, I don't have a drill press at my house, which would be probably a more ideal situation, but I do have my good old DeWalt drill, which is what we're going to be using. And I've got a special little attachment that is meant for boring out holes. We're going to drill out the rivets and pop the body off. I'm going to show you where the rivets are on these cars. When you flip it over, you see these two little dots right there, that one and that one. Those are the rivets. It would have been a little metal rod that came up and was pushed over to close off the chassis from the body. I need to separate it to do a proper job of paint. If I try and tape it off, it's going to look weird, and plus there's gook and dirt and gunk in there that I want out. So I am going to opt to actually take the body right off, and same on this one too. There's the little rivets. Those are going to come off, and sadly it's not going to look 100% factory because I am removing the rivets, but it will give me a restored car. Plus, I don't want people to think that they're, you know, nice examples of an unrestored car. It's okay. You know, they're not worth a whole lot right now, but fixed up, it will increase the value because it'll look nice, like anything. So let's get these popped apart and see what they look like disassembled. I am gonna use both hands on this and hold it steady, and while I do that, just like that, I'm gonna drill out that little rivet, but I'm not gonna do this. That's why I'm gonna hold it steady. We're gonna put the drill right on the rivet and drill that out very, very carefully and very, very slowly. That's what I'm gonna do next, and I'll show you not the finished product, but the body off. Rivets are drilled out, and I use kind of a conical bit. You can kind of see it's cone shaped a little bit. That's meant for actually boring holes out. The reason I use that is it doesn't remove too much material, and it otherwise you could risk going right through all the metal and widening that hole out too much. But this seems to work pretty good. So we've got those out. Now just to separate it from the body. There it is. Just like that. So there's one part. And there's the other, and the interior and everything should just pop out. Let's get that all taken out here and I'll show you. And there is one dismantled car. And you could go one step further and take the wheels off too, which I might do after. But we've got the chassis, we've got the body, the interior, and the windscreen. I am going to see if I can try and clean that up a bit. It looks pretty ratty right now, but I'd like to be able to reuse as many original parts as I can. The interior looks pretty decent. And look, no rust. Must have been a California car. So next step for me is going to be getting this the balance of the paint off, which in this case, there's not a whole lot left. There's an old sticker stuck on the side and some remnants of green, but I've got to get the rest of the paint off and get it prepped, because before you paint it, you want a nice clean surface. To do that, I'm actually going to soak it in some, either you can use brake fluid, oddly. That works to take paint off. You've probably noticed you never want to spill brake fluid on anything. Or good old-fashioned paint stripper. I don't know what I've got around the house right now. So it's gonna be one of those two, and I'll let that soak in there and come and check on it. But I guess I should also remember to dismantle the Ferrari while we're at it and get it taken apart too. Ferrari is dismantled. Now to get both of these bodies, into some paint stripper and get them cleaned up. This windscreen off the heavy Chevy is quite scuffed and dull. I want to be very, very careful doing this, but what I'm going to do is take some, it's Peak. It's actually a fiberglass, ceramic, metal. It cleans a whole bunch of stuff. It's a nice abrasive sort of cleaner. I'm going to polish it with that, and then I'm going to try some of this Mother's Power Plastic. It's the stuff you use on your headlights to get your headlight clear again. I figure it's meant for plastic and oxidization, might work. So we're gonna give it a try. Okay, even with just using a little bit of the metal polish, you can kind of see the writing is clear again through there. I have to do a little bit more on the edges, but this thing is coming up a little bit clearer than it was before. A little bit more polish and should be good as new. Well, not good as new. That's a huge misdirect. It won't be good as new. It'll be acceptable for this restoration. That's more like it. On early Hot Wheels, red lines particularly, the wheels are held on by a little bearing. And if you're very careful, you can kind of get them off. You have to make sure not to pull too hard because you can pull and stretch that wire and wreck it. So I have removed the wheels. And the way you can tell if your wheel comes off, that has a little hole in the back, and you'd see that little white ring. This one has what's called caps, which is like a snap cap. If you put a little knife on there, it'll pop right off. Just the half of it will. And then newer Hot Wheels are held on just by a wire that's kind of bent over, or I guess flanged out at the end, or flared out at the end. This one, I wanted to take the wheels off because these wheels are really gross. They're not worth saving. They're gunked up and they're done. Those wheels are done. Maybe one of them I might be able to save for a rainy day. But I've been saving some wheels, and there are places you can go online to buy replacement wheels. It does affect the value if you use replacement wheels, but since this is a restoration, it's no big deal. It's just a fun little thing anyway. So I'm going to take a wire brush, get the rest of the paint that's on this one off, and clean it up a bit. I'm going to try and leave the bottom looking more or less original. I don't want to overdo it on the bottom here, but I am going to clean the paint off of it because I don't want random chunks of yellow and stuff stuck on it when I put it back together. The chassis on the Ferrari was actually pretty decent, so we're just going to leave that exactly as it is. Even the red lines on there are good, so we'll just make sure we straighten them out so there it sits nice and rolls straight, and I'll get to town on that. Well, I had the cars sitting in this brake fluid solution overnight. You can see the little green flakes of paint that are in the bottom. That's because the paint is off. Now, this actually came up pretty close to this. I did give it a bit of a clean with a dental pick to get in the areas, and copper wire brush to clean out the bottom so it wouldn't scratch it. But that came out really clean, and here's the heavy Chevy. Also pretty decent. It has some toning to the metal, that's fine. I mean, that happens with age. You can see the circle stain there from when the sticker was on there, but that's okay. It's not meant to be, I'm not gonna sit here and buff that thing right out to brand new because I don't wanna lose any of these details. And a little bit of toning and discoloration is fine. But I'm gonna get those washed up with soap and water because I don't want to have any residue of the brake fluid on there. Oh yeah, and I cut a brisk container. You can use any type of plastic basically that'll contain that and it won't eat through or corrode or anything. So I'm gonna get rid of that, wash these guys up, and get them prepped for paint. What I'm going to use today for painting these models is this, the Duplicolor metal cast paint. I'm not sponsored by Duplicolor, but this stuff does work pretty good. It's meant to go on chrome or shiny metal finish directly without primer. And it gives it that Spectra Flame sort of look. In fact, this blue, I've used it once before, is pretty much an exact match for the original blue Spectra Flame. So we're gonna give these guys a little shot on the underside here, then we'll flip them over and do the top. And I've got my trusty flyers that came to my door for for roast beef sales, I guess, or whatever's going on. But let's give this a try. I'm gonna do a couple of light coats first, and we'll come back over and do a second coat after. We'll let that set up. Because this is a very thin paint, you actually have to do several coats. You can't do it all at once, otherwise it's not going to look right. So we're going to let that dry, let it set up a little bit, and after we give it a couple other coats, we'll flip it over and do the other. Bottoms are more or less done. We're going to flip it over and do the tops now. While the paint is drying, while that coat of paint is drying on the cars, I'm gonna go clean up the chassis and get it ready for reinstallation after the paint's done. Looking at the front of the car, I can see the black has chipped off and the silver is chipped off on the front and a little bit around the back. So I'm gonna grab my silver model paint that I've got, give that a little touch up, see if we can't make it a bit better. Now that the paint is dried, we've got that nice, good, glossy, deep finish on there. I am going to be using JB Weld, which is a 2-part epoxy, to do the fun part, which is the reassembly. Where you can put the interiors and the chassis. You want to make sure you get everything in there because you don't want to accidentally get it together and realize later that you missed putting the engine and the interior in. So we're going to get all the pieces sorted. We're going to test it out, make sure it fits, and then stick it all together with the JB Weld. I'm excited. This is probably my most fun part. Also, these old ratty tires that I had, the wheels, I just so happen to keep extras around, and I had some that were quite a bit better. So I'm going to put those on the chassis, and that should really dress up that heavy Chevy quite nicely. So let's get to town. Mixed up the 2-part epoxy and I got a little bit on the end of a toothpick and I dabbed it right where the rivet was. And the nice thing about using this is that you get that rounded sort of rivet-like look, as opposed to some people use a screw or something like that. This will be fairly sturdy and strong. As you can see, I left the base original as it was. I did not repaint it, did not replate it or anything. Again, this is just a cleanup, not a full-on restoration, but it'll sure look better. So we're gonna let that dry, let both of them dry actually. There's the other one. And we'll see how these look after a couple hours of drying. Well, there we have it. They're all painted, looking much better. We have the windscreen polished up. Paint is looking nice and shiny, and they're rolling well. To straighten out the wheels a little bit on them, but overall, those turned out really decently. There you have it. It's, like I said, not 100% perfect, but it sure looks a lot better. And you know, it went from being basically like a bottom of the toy box junky car to something that someone might actually buy and put in their collection. Now, of course, I want to let people know that this is fixed up and painted and not an original car, because it does change the value. But that said, looks pretty darn good. Anyway, thanks for watching today's video, guys. Make sure to tune in for more. And to that YouTuber out there who suggested that I repaint some cars, well, there you go. Have a lovely day. We'll see you all soon, and bye for now.